The cabin works nights the way a chest does when it's thinking about stopping. Relay rack on my right. Interlocking panel on my left. A grid of tired lamps, green, yellow, red. Labels rubbed to ghosts. The code line bell hangs above like a nickel halo. It rings when the line speaks. It rings for other reasons I don't write down. I keep the logbook across my knees. Paper too thick, ink too heavy. Every hour I know time, weather, movements, faults. The pen scratches loud in the quiet, a sound I make on purpose. Silence grows teeth in here. Outside, the yard is a rusted cemetery. Boxcars rot on buckled tracks. The wind hums through couplers. Dew fogs the CCTV lens so the monitor snows even when the sky is clean. Diesel rides the draft under the door. Creosote seeps from the floorboards. Two smells that never leave you, even after you wash. Coffee helps. Bitter, black, boiled in a dented kettle. The red mug has a chipped rim. Handle pointed east, because Marta insists it matters. Ritual, she says. When she's off, I keep the handle the same way. Not because I believe, because this place makes habits out of you. Harlan taps his ring 3 times on the panel whenever the cabin trembles. He never lights the cigarette he carries. Marta minds the kettle. Danny wears sneakers so white they glow in the monitor. And he whistles through his teeth. I've told him whistling feels like calling. He laughs. He's 23. Me, I'm Ethan. I'm the one in the chair at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, counting seconds by the breath of a machine. There's a laminated sheet pinned beside the panel, corners curled. 4 rules, black on yellow plastic. You can feel the staple burr where someone before pressed a thumb too hard. People say they stop seeing it after a while. I don't. I drag a finger down the first line every shift until the skin remembers. Checks. Points for the eastbound through, switches for the siding, lamp test. The toggles are cold knuckles. My thumb finds lever number 7 even when I don't want it to. I lay it there and don't pull. I tap lever number 3 twice without thinking. A tick I picked up from Harlan. I don't pray, but I still touch lever number 7 like it owes me something. The heater under the desk coughs and quits. Cold climbs my shins. I heel the warped plank at my left until it squeaks once, just to hear it. On the monitor, a moth skates the lens and becomes a freight for half a second. I nudge the volume knob up until the hiss is a blanket and wait for horns way out. 2 longs and a short, something solid in the noise. I keep the room noisy. Pen, chair, kettle, a boot scuff. If the air goes still more than 7 seconds, you can feel the panel think. 10 seconds. And something else is thinking back. Harlan told me that my first week like he was warning me about saw blades. He didn't smile. The wall clock is cheap plastic. Marta sets it straight, it drifts anyway. The face bows. The second hand catches, hesitates, pushes through. Outside the cracked pane, weed heads lean in the night wind. Somewhere a bird makes 3 dry clicks between 4 and 5. Nature slips in through seams. Never stays long. The laminated sheet shines under the desk lamp. Its bottom edge carries a stain like old oil that never wipes off. In the drawer label "Do Not Remove," a snapped lead seal stamped with our company's initials, a string that broke without being touched. I didn't remove those either. The relay rack answers the line with little iron kisses. Click. Release. Click. More felt than heard. The bell gives a polite test ping. I note the time. My handwriting thins when I'm cold. The chair creaks. I let it. The cabin likes a body that reminds it you're still here. 1:58. Eastbound checklist done. 2:11. Bell gives 1 soft note and swallows it. 3:14. Heater coughs back for 2 minutes and dies. I refill the mug. Handle east. It isn't superstition if it keeps you alive. It's training. By 7:18, the yard is a deeper gray. The panel is a patient animal. Greens breathe in and out, yellows stare, reds hold. Sometimes you think you hear it sigh the way a person does when a decision lands. I tell myself it's just the rack warming. I tell myself a lot in here. The clock's second hand sticks at the bulge, shudders through. I write the last line of the 7:15 entry. No movement. All routes normal, and keep the pen lifted because the room presses against my skin. The fine hairs on my hand stand straight. Cold runs through the bones of my fingers as if someone gripped them. The pause is alive, waiting. At 7:19 exactly, lamp number 7 blinks. No lever moves, no route set. The relay rack clicks in my teeth. The bell starts a note and swallows it. The CCTV washes white and settles. For one breath, the air tastes like river. My palm goes to lever number 7. I let the cold remind me the hand is mine. I count back from 5. I lift away. I write the time in the margin and underline it twice, the way I always do, the way I wish I didn't. I'll say it plain so you don't end up a story. The cabin has rules. They're not for the company. They're for living till daylight. Write this on your hand if you have to. You do not step outside. Danny read the first rule out loud, like it was a punchline. He leaned back in the chair, sneakers on the log shelf, whistle leaking through his teeth. Never leave the cabin, he said. That's it? That's not a rule. That's babysitting coffee. Marta didn't answer. She just turned the red mug so the handle faced east. Harlan tapped his ring against the panel. 3 knocks, even, like a judge's gavel. His face didn't change. You don't leave, he said, because out there isn't yours. Cabin keeps you in, outside keeps you. Danny laughed, too loud for the room. The relay rack answered with a single tick like it disagreed. Harlan didn't smile. He rubbed the lighter he never struck. 79 Express. July 1979, 19 past 7 in the evening. Bridge failed outside town. Hole consists in the river. 79 passengers. Not all of them came back up. His voice thinned. Some still walk. Some still ride. They're looking for doors, kid. And you don't want to open one. The heater groaned under the desk, blew one breath, then went dead. My fingers stung, like I'd dipped them in ice. Danny shifted, but kept grinning. Stories, he said. I turned the CCTV monitor toward him. Grainy gray, the service path behind us, gravel, fence, weeds. I rolled the buffer back. You want stories? Watch. The feed showed last year. Ellis, a fill-in dispatcher, quiet, decent with diagrams. There he was at the door, hand on the latch, rolling his shoulders, like a man stretching after hours of stillness. He opened it. Stepped out, the door shut. The panel flared red. Track 3, occupied. No train due, just a lamp burning where it shouldn't. On the screen, Ellis walked past the dock, down the path, toward the fence. Calm, steady. The motion light over the yard caught his face for one clear frame, relaxed, maybe even smiling. Then he went into the dark. I wanted to look away, but the cabin wanted me to watch. No one saw him again until a week later. They dragged him out of the river, 2 miles downstream. Clothes neat, wallet in his pocket. Skin pale, like he'd been under an hour, not days. Autopsy said lungs full of water. No bruises, no fight, just drowned. Like he'd lain down and breathed. The monitor flickered back to live feed. The empty gravel path, lamp buzzing. I swear I heard a drip in the corner of the cabin, like water falling onto wood. The air carried a damp chill, sharp as river stone. Danny's grin faltered. He just walked, I said. Calm as you, steady as anyone. He never broke stride. Harlan knocked the panel again. 3 even taps, hollow and final. They're still out there, kid. Still waiting for a platform. You step out, you step onto their schedule. No one spoke. Marta's hand hovered over the mug, like she was afraid to touch it. The bell on the line lifted a note, choked it off. The clock's second hand shivered on the bulge in the glass before moving on. I wrote it down in the margin. 2:47. Do not leave. Underlined twice. The ink feathered like it wanted to spread. My hand shook just enough to tell me the rule wasn't mine to break. Danny didn't laugh anymore. The yard beside us is a graveyard in iron. Rows of boxcars scabbed with rust, couplers split like broken jaws. The siding next to the cabin has grass growing between the ties, thick as hair. On damp nights, the smell of creosote comes up from the timbers, so strong it feels like breathing tar. Danny stood at the door the next shift, staring out through the crack in the pane. His sneaker tapped against the floor, nervous, but his grin was back. "All that fuss about not leaving," he muttered. "It's just a yard. Looks dead to me." Harlan didn't look up. He tapped his ring 3 times, eyes still on the panel. "That's because it is dead. That's their home now." The heater coughed and went quiet. Silence folded in. Danny's whistle slipped through his teeth, thin, tuneless, filling the space the cabin didn't want empty. Marta turned the red mug again, handle east, but this time her hand trembled. "You really believe that?" Danny said, "That the dead just sit out there between the ties?" Harlan finally raised his head. His face had the patience of steel worn thin. "They don't sit, kid. They wait. Difference is, waiting's louder." The relay rack answered. Staccato click-click, too fast, too insistent. Danny laughed. Thumb pressed the latch. The metal groaned. Cold air bit my skin before he even opened the door all the way. My palm went to lever number 7 without thinking. "Don't," I said. But he pulled it open, leaned out. The relay wall stuttered like teeth chattering. The track circuit lamp for line 7, dead for years, flared red, occupied. "Jesus," Marta whispered, yanking her hand back from the mug as if it might burn her. Danny craned his neck into the yard. "I don't see anything." He was right. The CCTV camera swung to the siding, empty gravel, chain-link fence, no headlamp, no steel. But the panel disagreed. It screamed occupied in hard red, steady and certain. I slammed the door before he could take a step. The latch clanged home. The red lamp snapped out. The relay rack sighed back into rhythm, calm again. The cabin held still, but the air turned wrong. Hot with diesel 1 second, cold like stone the next. My chest felt tight, like I was the one holding the cabin's breath. A metallic tang filled my nose, sharp as brake dust. Then I saw it. A stain spread across the floorboards from the door to the panel. Dark, oil black. The smell hit hard, burnt brakes, creosote boiling, the stink of a freight that had torn itself to a stop. Danny backed away, sneakers squeaking on the damp wood. He wasn't grinning now. That's just old oil, right?" No one answered. The heater stayed dead. The cabin felt like it had inhaled and was waiting patient for us to make the next mistake. I wrote it in the logbook, my hand stiff. Track 7, occupied. Visual clear, residue present. Underlined twice. The ink dragged heavy like writing in mud. Harlan tapped his ring again, 3 slow beats, not to calm the room but to warn it. His voice was low, almost kind. "Never open the door, even to look. You think you'll see nothing, that's the trick." The oil stain lingered for hours, veining the grain of the wood. Every time I glanced at it, I thought it pulsed, a shadow remembering where it belonged. There's a rhythm to this job, and the cabin hates when you break it. We keep the air alive, voices, bells, clicks, anything, because silence is worse than static. The rule says it plain, never let the signals die. 7 seconds quiet, and the code line drops. The interlocking goes dark. After that, it's not just steel that listens. Most nights it's easy. Relays chatter, block bell pings, someone coughs, Danny whistles thin through his teeth. Even the logbook keeps a rhythm, my pen dragging steady in the margin. But some nights, the sound bleeds out of the room, like the walls are swallowing it. It happened on a Tuesday, cold enough that frost spidered thin across the pane. One moment the panel glowed its steady red and green. The next, everything blinked out. Relay clicks ceased mid-beat, the heater fan cut. Even Danny's whistle choked in his throat. The silence was wrong, not just quiet, thick, the kind that presses against your skin like you're underwater. My pulse jumped once, hard, and my knuckles cramped on the pen. Marta whispered, "Something's out." Her voice died the second it left her mouth. Then the intercom snapped on. The red lamp above it burned like an open wound. A woman's voice spilled out, slow and polite, rehearsed like she'd been waiting decades to say it. "Next stop, 1979. Her syllables stretched, warm and wrong, like a tannoy speaker warped by age. Danny barked a laugh, but it broke halfway. "It's a prank," he said, too loud, trying to fill the air. The silence swallowed him anyway. The teleprinter in the corner coughed awake, paper spooling fast, black ink stamped neat mechanical letters across the feed. Track 7, train speed equals 0. Doors open. No scheduled service, no crew, no consist, just track 7 dead for decades reporting like it was ready to board. The paper smelled of ozone and hot dust, sharp enough to sting. I didn't touch it. Marta backed against the wall, mud clutched like a talisman. Harlan tapped his ring once, flat and deliberate, as if acknowledging a passenger's ticket. Shh, the silence broke all at once. Relays clacked back into rhythm. Panel lamps blinked alive. The heater wheezed. Danny coughed. Normal sound, but not normal pace. Too fast, too eager. The paper feed stuttered to a halt, leaving one strip curled and smoking faint from heat. The cabin exhaled. The weight eased. My chest loosened. I tore the printed strip off, folded into the logbook. My hand shook enough to smudge the ink, but I wrote it anyway. 213, telemetry report, track 7, train registered. Harlan finally spoke. His voice was dry, no louder than the bell. "The dead hate silence. Same as us. Worse, maybe. Leave them a gap, they'll fill it." Danny didn't laugh again that night. Marta didn't whisper either. For hours, we kept the air busy. Bell checks, lever calls, even humming when we ran out of words. None of us dared let 7 seconds pass. When my shift ended, I caught the teleprinter strip glinting in the desk lamp. The letters had ghosted faint onto the next page, repeating the same phrase over and over. Doors open, doors open, doors open. The first time the phone rang during my shift, I thought it was routine. Requests, dispatch checks, prank calls, signal cabins pick them all up. But this one came right after the silence broke, when the teleprinter strip still smelled of hot dust. The line clicked, sharp as a relay snap. A faint hum bled through, sharp with ozone like hot wire under rain. Then a woman's voice, calm, polite, rehearsed. "Could you tell me when the next express is due? My husband and I are traveling for our honeymoon." The cabin froze with me. Marta's hand stalled mid-turn on her mug, steam curling past her knuckles. "What's your name?" I asked. "Mary," she said. "Mary Glass." The name sat wrong in my ear, like a misfiled schedule card. Harlan tapped his ring once against the rail, flat, deliberate, warning enough. "I'll check," I said, though I didn't need to. The schedule board was blank. The line cut without a goodbye. I logged it neat. 247 call received. Female voice. Name Mary Glass. Honeymoon. After the shift, I climbed into the storage loft, dust sifting down in the beam of my torch. A box of old accident reports lay wedged behind spare fuses. The paper still stank of oil ink. July 1979. Collision on line 7. 79 fatalities. Passenger Mary Glass, 23, newlywed. Dead 40 years. Buried with the others who never made the river curve. The next night the phone rang again. Same clipped click, same hum, same voice, polite and patient as if she'd never stopped speaking. "Could you tell me when the next express is due?" Danny grabbed the receiver before I could. "Mary, huh? You want track 7? It's clear for you, sweetheart." He snorted into the line. "Catch the honeymoon special." The cabin answered. The interlocking panel bled red across its board. Route lamps A through C blinked out of sync. Point motor. Number 7 clunked so hard the desk rattled. The fault bell screamed 3 sharp peals, each one tearing through my teeth. My heart jolted with every clang, sinking me to the cabin's panic. Danny's grin cracked. He dropped the handset like it burned. Marta flinched. Coffee sloshed over her skin. The relay rack chattered like a cage of teeth. Lamps stuttered between red and amber, roots fighting each other. I slammed my palm onto lever. Number 7, muscles shaking, and held it down. The motors ground back into alignment. The bell gagged silent. The lamps steadied, though one marker kept bleeding red, like a wound that wouldn't clot. Danny shrank into the corner, pale in the panel's glow. "I was just joking." Harlan's voice cut him off, calm as a verdict. The dead don't take jokes. He knocked his ring 3 times, steady. You pick up when you shouldn't, you invite them in, and once they're in, they want a ride. The cabin shuddered, subtle but real like steel under a passing train. The air reeked of hot brakes and river water. I wrote it down. 301. Unauthorized call answered. Interlocking fault. Panel unstable. The ink feathered slanting like someone else leaned on my hand. The phone never rang again that night, but the receiver sat crooked on its hook, tilted, as if listening. Danny didn't whistle anymore. The panel woke me before I noticed I'd dozed, cheek pressed to the logbook spine. A single line pulsed green across the interlocking board. Bold letters that hadn't lit in decades glared back at me. Train inbound, track 7. The words didn't belong. Track 7 had been torn up in 1974, before I was even born. Outside the window, weeds choked the ballast where steel used to run, boxcars gutted and left to rot. But on the panel, the lamps burned like it was live. Danny whistled low. Guess Mary got her ticket. Harlan didn't move. He just tapped his ring twice on the edge of the desk, eyes fixed on the glow. Don't answer it. The fault bell didn't ring. Not yet. The relays clicked in sequence, too clean, as if someone invisible was stepping through them in order. My fingers itched to reach for lever number 7. Habit or compulsion, I couldn't tell. The panel flickered. Letters shifted. 7's clear. The 2 words bled across the board, crisp as a dispatcher's hand. Points clunked in the floor below, the sound of heavy iron dragged where nothing should move. Marta whispered, "It can't, there's no line left." Her mug handle turned east without her hand on it. Coffee slopped over the rim, hissing on the hot plate. Then the cabin shook. Not a quake, not a passing freight. A surge that made the window glass tremble in its frame, the logbook slide half an inch. My teeth jarred together, the heater rattled loose bolts in its shell. Through the CCTV, track 7 showed only darkness. A camera pointed at weeds, no rail, no shine of steel. But the motion sensor tripped. Lamps washed the yard in harsh white. Nothing moved. Nothing human, nothing mechanical, just shadows bending wrong against the weeds. The floor vibrated harder. Steady rhythm, like axles pounding joints in rail that wasn't there. Boom, boom, boom. Building under my boots until I swore I felt ballast shift beneath the cabin's stilts. Danny backed from the panel, sneakers squeaking. His grin had died days ago, and now even his whistle wouldn't come. He clutched his arms like holding himself together. Harlan spoke low, like he was reciting from a book older than him. Ignore it, no matter what the board says, no matter what it sounds like. Track 7 is gone. Let it stay gone. The booms swelled to a roar. A blast of wind knifed through the cabin's cracks, smelling of wet iron and long-burnt coal. My chest locked tight, breath catching in rhythm with the phantom wheels. I wanted to cover my ears, but the intercom lit. No ring, no voice, just the red lamp burning. Not steady, pulsing, matching the rhythm underfoot. Boom. Lamp. Boom lamp. Then silence. The panel went black. The vibration cut clean. The cameras showed weeds standing still, motion lights cooling to amber. Coffee steamed where Marta had spilled it. Harlan's ring still rested against the wood, but he hadn't knocked again. Danny's arms shook tight around his ribs. I put it in the log. 3:43 a.m. Unauthorized indication. Panel displayed train inbound, track 7. 7's clear. Cabin vibration consistent with heavy axle load. No visible train. The ink spread a little on the paper, as if the fibers themselves remembered being jostled. I didn't add the part where the floor still trembled faintly under my boots, like rails humming with a train that refused to stop. The next night, the cabin felt tired, like the wood in its bones had soaked up the phantom train and couldn't quite dry out. The floor still had a tremor underfoot if you stood still long enough. Faint, as a heartbeat buried in stone. Nobody spoke much. Marta brewed the coffee early, just to have steam between us and the dark. Danny didn't whistle anymore. He sat stiff, sneaker toes lined up with the seam in the floorboards, eyes stuck to the panel like he was waiting for it to blink first. I opened the logbook out of habit. Inked columns, shifts, and notes stacked across the yellowed paper. Something felt off. A page halfway back carried a smear of oil that hadn't been there last night. My own handwriting stopped clean on one line, then bled faintly under the paper, as if the ink kept writing without me. Marta noticed me staring. She dug under the drawer and pulled out a folder wrapped in tape. Old timetables curled at the edges, the kind of paper that smells of hot dust and skin oil. She laid one flat on the desk. Departure, 7:19 p.m., express to nowhere. The line wasn't a joke, wasn't a smudge. Typed clean, black letters fading to gray with age. She tapped the date on the margin. August 1979. The cabin's silence stretched. Even the relays seemed to hold their tongues. Harlan broke it with his ring. One knock, slow. That train never made it to a terminus, he said. His voice wasn't telling a story. It was weighing fact. You won't find an arrival column anywhere. Just that departure. Danny snorted, but there wasn't heat in it. He leaned forward, scribbled in the logbook with a half-dry pen. Train 7 inbound, lol. He underlined it twice, grinning at us like he wanted someone to react. Nobody laughed. The heater coughed, then went dead. The chill came fast, sharper than the night air through the cracks. Relay lamps dimmed one after another until only the number 7 section glowed faintly red. I wrote the time, 3:42. Pen scratched like nails on bone. The CCTV flickered on its own. Screen fuzzed to snow, then steadied on the yard. Nothing out there but weeds nodding against the rails, bent by a wind that didn't touch the trees behind them. Danny tapped the log again. See? Nothing. The bell cut him off. Block section. 3 rapid strikes. The sound rattled my teeth. Marta flinched. Coffee sloshed over her knuckles, and she didn't even curse. The printer feed whirred from the corner. Paper spooled steady, line by line. Passenger count, 79. The words hit harder than the bell. I smelled burnt brakes and damp cloth. A rush of river water sharp in my nose. Danny's grin fell apart. He scrubbed at the ink with his thumb like he could erase it. But the paper only grew darker. Lines feathering outward as if oil rose from underneath. His sneakers squeaked when he shoved back too fast. Heel clipping the floor seam. Marta pulled the timetable closer, hands shaking. The typed line, express to nowhere, seemed to swell under the desk lamp. Letters bleeding faint, thin trails down the page. She turned her mug so the handle faced east again. Automatic, as though that tiny ritual could keep the paper from swallowing us whole. Harlan didn't move. His hand rested on the desk, ring glinting. He said, "Schedules don't lie. They only repeat. Every night, same hour, same line. You add to it, it adds back." He looked at Danny. Not cruel, just certain. I closed the logbook hard, felt the floor shudder under the slam like it had echoed somewhere else. For a second, the panel's lamps all flickered at once. Green, then red, a nervous tick. No train came. The night wore on in silence. Only the faint relay clicks reminding us the system still lived. When dawn pushed pale through the blinds, I opened the logbook again. My own handwriting sat where I'd left it. But underneath, a new line, penned neat in ink I didn't own. Passenger count, 79. No initials, no hand we could match, just the number set down like fact. The logbook smelled of creosote, damp earth, and something sweet, like flowers left too long on a grave. I closed it slow, pressed my palm to the cover to feel if the paper underneath still moved. The logbook never lies. It only waits for the next hand to write what it already knows. The red mug lives on the top shelf of the cabinet, above the warped sink. Heavy ceramic, chipped near the lip, handle wide enough for 2 fingers. The glaze never dulled. No one buys mugs like that anymore. It doesn't belong to any of us. It belongs to the job. Every night at close, we brew one last cup, black, no sugar, no cream, and set it by the side door. Handle facing out, steam drifting up into the drafts. Nobody watches what happens to it after. Nobody needs to. By morning, the mug is always empty, sometimes bone dry, sometimes ringed with residue like ash. Marta says nobody skipped it since 1979. She said it without looking at me, just turning the handle east, same as always. Her knuckles brushed the ceramic, like she was checking for a pulse. I thought it was theater. Ritual stacked on ritual. Leave the coffee, soothe the ghosts, keep the rails from shaking. It felt like the kind of habit old crews would cling to until it hardened into rule. The laminated sheet doesn't explain it. Just Rule 4. Leave the coffee. That night I decided to test it. We'd made it past 3 without a call, without a printout, without track 7 showing its teeth. The cabin felt hollow in that rare way. No clicks, no hums beyond the heater grinding to itself. Danny had his sneakers kicked up, pretending he was relaxed. Harlan sat quiet, ring-ticking the metal rail once, twice. Marta's mug steamed beside her elbow, handle east, untouched. When the shift wound down, I rinsed the red mug and set it back on the shelf, empty. I didn't brew, didn't pour, just walked away. At first nothing happened. The cabin stayed still. The bell line hung dead, relays idled. Then the block bell rang. Once, twice, 3 times in a row, urgent, metallic, wrong. My chest locked tight. Harlan's head snapped up. Marta's mug toppled, hot coffee splashing her wrist, but she didn't flinch. Danny froze mid-grin. The interlocking panel bled red across its grid. Lamps blinked inbound. Points clunked into reverse on their own, and the whole cabin heaved like a body lurching awake. I grabbed the lever bank, but the metal shivered under my palms, humming with a current not mine. Fault bells screamed high and steady, drilling through my teeth. Then the floor shook. Hard enough that the logbook slid off the desk and slapped open on the boards. The walls groaned. The heater coughed dust. Through the glass I swore I saw headlights. White, impossible, fixed dead center on the cabin. The rails outside stayed black. "They're here," Harlan said flat. He didn't move. The panel screamed, "Phantom train inbound, track 7. I tore the mug down, filled it fast with scalding coffee, and set it by the side door. Handle east. Steam climbing the air like smoke from a brake shoe. The second the ceramic hit wood, the cabin stilled. Bells died. Relays clicked back into idle. The interlocking lamps blinked out, one by one, until only the normal greens and yellows showed. My pulse still hammered against my ribs, too loud in the quiet. Nobody spoke. Marta picked up the fallen logbook and wiped it with her sleeve. Danny sat pale, sneakers wet with coffee splash. Harlan tapped his ring once, softer than usual, like punctuation. By morning, the mug was empty. The handle wore a black smear across its curve, long and too wide, like something had gripped it from the wrong angle. The coffee inside had been drained so clean the ceramic squeaked when I rinsed it. I didn't test it again. Some rules read like safety manuals. Others read like scripture. This one feels older than either. Leave the coffee or the rails invite their own passengers. Whatever climbs into that cup walks out satisfied. Whatever doesn't, stays. The red mug still sits on the shelf waiting for night, and I keep the brew strong. Harlan said it the next night without waiting for a question. His voice landed like a weight on the desk. "This isn't a job, it's a ritual." He tapped his ring 3 times, slow. The sound hung in the cabin longer than it should have. Marta adjusted the red mug at her elbow. Empty now, handle east, like punctuation. Danny opened his mouth to wisecrack, but nothing came out. He stared at the floor, sneakers damp from last night's spill, jaw clenched like he was holding back more than words. I asked the only thing that felt true. "Then what's it keeping out?" Harlan looked past me toward the panel. "Not out," he said. "Through. The rails cut both ways. Signals don't just tell trains where to go, they tell whatever rides them where to stop." The heater coughed, then stilled. For a moment, the only sound was the relay wall breathing. Marta leaned closer, whisper sharp. "You think this place runs because of the company? It doesn't. It runs because we keep the rules. No rules, no cabin. And if the cabin dies, so do we. The block bell answered her. Not the clean double ping of traffic, but a clatter like a hand hitting it at random. We all froze. The bell kept on, rhythm broken, metal choking itself raw. My pulse jumped with every clang until my ears rang. Then the telegraph spool shrieked awake in the corner. Paper rattled out, hot and reeking of ozone, letters stamping dark and fast. 7:19 Express, passenger 79, line after line, repeating, identical, stacking until the strip curled across the floor like a ton. Danny kicked his sneaker back against the wall, too loud. It's just junk feed. The intercom cut him. The lamp burned crimson, washing his face blood red. A single voice spoke, flat and male this time. Just 2 words, crisp as an order. 7's clear. The cabin reacted. Relays screamed into motion. Points clunked underneath. The whole frame groaning like steel under a freight it couldn't bear. The air stank of diesel exhaust, hot iron, and something sweet underneath. Flowers rotting in a vase. I gripped the logbook so hard the spine creaked. My pen scratched one line against the margin. Phantom signal received. 7:19 Express declared clear. The lights flickered with each syllable of the voice still echoing through the intercom, long after the lamp died. Marta wrapped both hands around her mug, knuckles white. "It knows we're listening," she said, voice too low to be for us. Harlan didn't argue. He knocked his ring once. Soft. Final. "Ignore it. That's all you can do." Danny shook his head, hair damp with sweat. "What if I don't want to ignore it?" he muttered. Nobody answered. The relay wall clicked, calm again, as though nothing had spoken. But the strip on the floor kept growing, long after the printer stopped. Letters repeating faint, like they were burned into the paper itself. 7:19 Express, passenger 79. Some nights the cabin feels like a church, others it feels like a station that never closed. This night, it felt like both, and the sermon came straight from track 7. Danny lasted another night and a half before he broke. Shh, he didn't announce it like a prank. He said it plain, voice flat, eyes sunk and restless from too many hours staring at the relay wall. "I'm going out there," he muttered. "Track 7's just a scarecrow. I'll prove it." Marta's hand froze on the mug handle. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence weighed heavier than a scream. Harlan didn't look up from the desk. He just tapped his ring once, slow, like a toll. You step out, you don't come back. That's rule 1. Danny shoved his sneakers against the floor, white rubber squeaking. His grin was thin, desperate. Maybe that's the point. I should have tied him to the chair. Instead, I tried words. "You've seen the logbook. You've seen the calls. You heard it last night. 7's clear." Danny's laugh was cracked glass. "Clear means safe, doesn't it? That's what signals are for. Safe passage." He said it like he needed to believe it. At 3 on the dot, he moved, pulled his jacket close, swung the door lever down. Cold river air spilled in, cutting the cabin's heat. My chest locked tight. I shouted. My throat tore on it. "Stay inside, Danny, don't." The yard lights bled red outside, every one of them flaring like wounds. The CCTV flickered alive, cameras dragging grain across the dark yard. Danny stepped through the doorway, sneakers first, white bright against the oil-black track. The relays behind me clattered wrong, like teeth chattering in the skull of the building. Marta pressed both hands to her mug, whispering something that sounded like prayer. Harlan stayed stone still. On the monitor, Danny walked steady down the rail bed, past weeds stiff with frost. The motion light caught his face, one clean frame. He was smiling again. "Track 7 inbound," the intercom hissed, lamp burning crimson. The fault bell clanged 3 times. The points under the cabin slammed, metal shrieking. My pen dropped from my hand. "Danny!" I screamed again. He didn't turn. The red lamp strobed harder. The panel screamed, "Occupied." On the CCTV, Danny reached the milepost. A rusted plate half buried in weeds. 7. The camera cut to snow, then cleared. The rail bed was empty. No Danny. The only thing left was one white sneaker lying crosswise on the ties, already soaked in dark oil. The cabin jolted like a freight had slammed through. My teeth rattled. Marta cried out, clutching her wrist where coffee had splashed over. When the vibration stopped, the feed steadied on the empty track. The sneaker still sat there, steam rising faint in the cold. I ran to the door, lever up in my fist, but I didn't cross the frame. The rule nailed me to the floor. My lungs begged. My legs burned to move, but I didn't. Harlan's voice was iron. He's gone. Marta shook her head, whispering, "Not gone, not yet." The relay wall clicked back into idle, calm, as if nothing had left. The panel lamps settled green. Outside, the sneaker sat on the ties until dawn, when the yard lights cut and the fog rolled. By then, it was gone too. I wrote it in the logbook with a shaking hand. Rookie breach. Track 7 claimed. One shoe recovered, lost by morning. When I put down the pen, my fingers still wouldn't stop trembling. Not from cold. From knowing we just witnessed the rails take someone in real time. Some nights I swear I hear Danny's whistle in the distance. Cut off halfway through. The yard keeps what it's given. Track 7 does not return anything whole. Morning came late in the cabin. The heater rattled. The relay wall clicked lazy, but nobody spoke. Marta sat stiff at the desk, mug handle east, her fingers trembling against the glaze. She turned it once, twice, like she couldn't stop. The coffee inside was cold, untouched. Harlan leaned on the wall, cigarette unlit between his teeth. Eyes not on us, but on the blank panel lamps. He hadn't knocked his ring once since Danny vanished. That silence felt worse than any fault bell. I opened the logbook. My hands shook enough that the pen scraped wrong, letters leaning like drunks. The page should have been clean. Instead, ink already sat there, strokes crooked, not mine. Passenger added. 7:19. The air went colder than river fog. My ribs ached with every breath. Marta whispered, "It's righting itself now." She turned the mug handle east again, over and over, knuckles pale. Harlan finally spoke. "He's not the first. He won't be the last. The cabin doesn't let go of its schedule." His voice was flat, but I saw the muscle in his jaw knot, like iron pulling taut. I flipped another page in the logbook. More words crawled across, faint at first, then pressing darker, as if burned in by a hot stylus. 7:19 Express, passenger 79, passenger 80. The number climbed while we watched. The pen dropped from my hand. The block bell clanged once, sharp, though no train was scheduled. I thought of Danny's sneaker steaming on the rail bed, then gone at dawn. My stomach turned like I'd swallowed rust. Marta clutched her mug tighter. Her voice cracked. "How many until it stops?" Harlan answered without looking. "It doesn't stop, it just replaces." The intercom lamp flickered red. Every head in the cabin snapped toward it. The speaker hissed, soft at first like water over stone. Then the voice came. Young, male, familiar. "Next shift, that's me." Danny's voice, flat. Clipped, no grin left in it. Marta's mug slipped in her hands. Coffee hit the floor, steaming dark. The smell of bitter grounds filled the cabin. The relay wall hummed approval, every lamp glowing steady green, like the board itself agreed. My chest locked tight. I wanted to shout, to smash the intercom off the wall, but my arms wouldn't move. The rule held me still. Harlan removed the cigarette from his teeth, finally tapped his ring once against the desk. "He's part of it now." Marta shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks, lips white. "That wasn't him. That wasn't." The logbook rustled though no one touched it. Ink wrote another line, letters shaking into place, "New operator confirmed." I pressed my hand to the page, trying to stop the letters, but the surface stayed hot, penless strokes digging through the fibers. My palm came up blackened with soot like I'd touched coal. The intercom hissed once more. "Cabin clear." Then silence. The panel lamps steadied, track circuits calm, but the air smelled of coffee burnt too long on a hot plate, sharp with ash. I closed the logbook, spine creaking, breath shaking. Harlan's eyes met mine, Old, heavy, already resigned. "I'm done soon," he said, voice more gravel than smoke. "Somebody's gotta stay. Rules don't keep themselves." He looked at me like a verdict. The heater coughed, and I realized the whole cabin felt smaller, like the walls had shifted inward, with Danny's voice still echoing in them. The logbook waits open even when I shut it. The ink breathes. The cabin wants a new hand to write the next shift. 4 years I've sat the night shift. 4 winters of relay clatter, bells screaming, silence pressing like stone. 4 years of keeping the rules alive, because if you let them die, the cabin takes you with them. The wall breathes steady tonight, every lamp glowing its proper green. My pen scratches calm across the logbook. Even so, my hand shakes, like it remembers Danny's. The mug waits, red ceramic chipped rim. I pour the coffee black, steam curling like brake smoke. Handle east, always east. I set it by the door. The ritual completes itself when you believe in it. The heater coughs once, the bell tests itself, the relay ticks, and the panel hums, normal, alive. The cabin wants the noise. I check the clock. The hands should drag toward dawn. Instead they lurch, always a little closer to 7:19. The panel lamps flare once scarlet then calm. A reminder. The rules don't sleep. Harlan retired last month. He didn't give a speech. He just tapped his ring 3 times, left it on the desk, and walked out at daylight. We never saw him again. Marta lasted another week. Her mug sits cold on the shelf. The handle still points east. Now it's only me, and the cabin, and the rules. The door creaks open, not by itself but with a knock. A kid stands there, shoulders hunched under a cheap jacket, eyes wide with the tired bravado of someone who thinks night shift means easy pay. Student, maybe. New hire. He glances at the relay wall, at the bell, at the mug steaming by the door. "Do you think I can handle it?" he asks. Voice too casual, but I hear the quiver under it. The panel hums low. The relay lamps twitch. The cabin already knows the answer. I study him a moment. I remember Danny's sneaker, Mary glass on the line, Harlan's ring, Marta's trembling hands, the logbook writing itself. The clock behind me freezes, 7:19. Every night it finds that moment. I set my pen down. My voice comes out colder than I feel. Memorize the rules or you won't last. The relay wall exhales once, satisfied. The mug by the door steams harder, a curl of vapor twisting like a signal flag. The kid frowns, maybe thinking it's just folklore. But the cabin leans in, making the air heavy, pressing him into silence. He nods once, slow. I slide the logbook toward him. The cover is scarred, the spine blackened with soot. The page open isn't blank. Words already etch themselves, sharp strokes digging dark. Shift scheduled, operator pending. The lamp above the intercom glows red, but no voice comes. Not tonight, not yet. The kid swallows, fingers hovering over the pen. His hand trembles like mine did once. The relay clicks, a dozen iron tongues answering. The cabin breathes in. The coffee mug at the door rattles faint, handle still east. Steam trails up into the dark. The yard outside lies black and endless. Track 7 waits as it always has. I don't tell him that part, he'll learn. The clock hasn't moved, it never does. 7:19 is all the time the cabin needs. Comment your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe to Dr. Noctis for more horror stories from the dark.